Thomas. Welcome back to Houston. Again, you picked another one of our cooler months in August to visit. But it's great to have you here. I've been really looking forward to this conversation, and thank you for taking the time to sit down with me here today. So we'll just dive right in with the first question. Obviously, Vysus Group has a long heritage in the energy industry. For our audience that might not be familiar with Vysus, can you tell us a little bit about what Vysus does, and also how you seeing today's market for Vysus and wider energy sector?
Thanks, Robin, and thanks for having me. It's always great to be back in Houston, especially when the weather's warm and nice, which I appreciate. First of all, a little bit on Vysus and where we come from. So Vysus was incepted in 2021. Before that, we actually used to be a part of Lloyd's Register. So our heritage goes back to being a part of Lloyd's, and so a lot of our technical pedigree and competency stems out of the classification market with Lloyd's. In 2020, Lloyd's decided to divest parts of its business, and among those parts that were divested was Vysus. And so we've since 2021 we've continued to run the business and grow the business to where it is today.
Wonderful. And what opportunities you're seeing, and how you're seeing the today's energy market for you and for Vysus?
So we our focus is actually on energy primarily, energy and industry. In energy in particular, it's very exciting times in most of our markets actually, and in most of our sectors and segments as well. There's slightly, you have regional variances as to which sectors are moving where. But in general, the fundamentals for energy is that most markets there's a need for more energy, particularly electrical energy. But also we now, interestingly enough, see a little bit of a comeback in oil and gas. Mm-hmm. We see a nuclear renaissance in Europe, in US, and of course we also see in nuclear. We see a technology revolution in terms of how nuclear power is going to be made available to the larger public through small modular reactors, for instance. And so, we are quite well positioned to support many of those markets with our services, and so it's very exciting.
Wonderful. And just delving a little bit deeper into that, are there any initiatives or projects or areas that you're excited about right now? It could be for Vysus globally, obviously given your global footprint, or in the Americas. We've seen a lot of traction on LNG. You touched on nuclear. Is there any initiatives that we're really excited about right now?
Yeah. So if we touch on the Americas first, since that's where we are, we're both in Canada and here in Houston, as well as Trinidad and Tobago. As you mentioned, we see LNG coming up as a quite a significant opportunity for us. We've already won our first contracts in that space, and so we believe LNG is going to be a big component of our business here in the US and in North America in general. In North America, we also see probably the strongest drive around nuclear, both from a conventional nuclear. There's a massive need to replace legacy nuclear power in the US, and that's obviously a market for us. But also on the technology side, our legacy in nuclear is that we've always worked for operators. We now find ourselves working for SMR producers, so essentially companies that design and build SMR products. So very interesting movements in the US and in Canada as well. In Europe, it has a slightly different flavor. Mm-hmm. And it's more diverse. We still have a strong presence in oil and gas in Norway, and then of course in continental Europe we see much more work around renewables, but also nuclear, as well as conventional industry.
Okay, thank you so much. Just going to the next step, naturally, but technology and innovation, of course, has a huge part to play in all of those topics you touched on. Just zooming out a little bit on the energy sector, what technologies and innovation right now excites you the most?
So obviously, as service providers and as a consultants, it's really key for us to understand, what our customers are doing. And so there's what I would say generally see is that we see that some of the technology drivers that we see with customers, we obviously try to work with our customers to help them realize value on their end. And some of that is very generic. I bet probably 99% of people that sit in this chair in a given occasion like this would mention AI. We obviously see that, but like many, we haven't find all the good use cases for that just yet. So that's something we're working on, but that's both internally as well as from a service perspective. I mentioned SMRs in nuclear, which is a technology shift where we actually find ourselves in a position where we use the same type of competencies, but we apply them on a product perspective instead of a asset perspective, which is also quite interesting. And then, of course, we have our range of products where we offer products that solves customers' problem through use of software or digital solutions. So we have 2 or 3 products that we actively promote in that space. And then probably what we next see on the horizon, which is going to be interesting from a risk management perspective, is we do have some products in the hopper where we work with some of our major customers to do innovations to essentially help customers understand real-time risks in their plant as they operate, which would be a tremendous opportunity for operators and owners to better deploy resources, more safely deploy resources, and just have a better understanding of what's going on in their plants. So, but that's probably a development we'll spend the next year and a half on, and I suppose we'll probably use AI at some level in that as well.
I look forward to hearing more about that. It's good to having some technical discussions here, but I'm also curious. I remember when I was a young engineer coming to the industry, always looked for good career advice, especially from senior leaders in the industry, but they're not always so accessible. So I'd like to use this platform to share a little bit about that. Just like, looking back, what advice would you have for young engineers or energy professionals either entering the market today or are at the early stages of their careers?
Yes, there's a couple of things that spring to mind that I think is really key. I think start by having good, honest conversations with your line manager, and be open about whatever ambitions you may have. Be open about what you want to achieve in your career and where you want to go, and make sure that your employer understands what your ambitions are and what you want to plan for yourself. I think that's probably my first advice. And it's a little bit selfishly as well for me, because we have too few of those conversations in my view, and so it's really unfortunate when we sometimes, unfortunately that's not a big problem for us. I'm glad to say you lose talent because we just didn't know, right? So I think that's my first piece of advice. Second for me is I would love in general for more engineers to stick their neck out and be a little bit more bold and talk about the interesting stuff that you do, or the interesting thoughts and solutions that you can do. There's so many things that our engineers do. For example, here in Houston, we have a big team that works on asset integrity and mechanical integrity. And if we are able to better find out all the improvements, all the solutions, all the technical developments they do in maybe small pieces. If we're able to release that, that's a big value to us. But as I said, my second advice: be a little bit bold, stick your neck out, and if you're in a good company, everybody's going to appreciate that.
No, I totally agree, and I would second that advice. Definitely being bold and not being afraid to share your ideas. You'd be surprised how right you can be often. But I think we lack that when we are at the early stages, or we don't have the experience. We might think we are stepping out of our lane, or our idea might not be valued. But I totally agree. In my experience, that has always worked for me. Then the final question, and this is one a little bit personal to you. You've obviously been very successful. Is there anything you think that contributed to your success? And finally, if you'd like to share anything else with our audience.
Yeah, I stuck my neck out. So that's probably if I were to sort of look back at my career, I've always tried to improve. Whatever responsibilities I've been given, I've always tried to improve them, and I've been trying to be open about what I'm trying to achieve. But in terms of sort of leadership, there's a few things that I think is really important, and for me, probably the biggest thing is try to be honest and very clear in your communication. Most people really appreciate when leaders are honest. Even if it's bad news, they still want to hear the actual story. They don't want a veiled kind of thing. They want to know what's actually going on, right? So communicate honestly, openly, and with clarity. I think that's probably the biggest thing for a leader. And then, secondly, I've come to a place where I really value simplicity. Simplicity in organizations, in structure, in processes, and work with the organization in a way that mandates it and empowers it instead of applying lots of bureaucracy and red tape to things. I think that's probably my two key principles when it comes to leadership that I try to stick to all the time. I'm not always successful, but yeah, that's what I try.
Thomas, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.
I appreciate it.